Like,
shouldn't matter because all it should see.
It's doing it now.
Stream is live.
Okay, and it came live like 8 or 9 seconds in, so it's probably going to be the very beginning of this is just going to be us like this.
All right. Well, I mean, it's just like the podcast, right?
It's just like the podcast.
By the way, I should mention, I pulled a bunch of muscles in my back about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And I'm on muscle relaxers right now, and I probably should not be consuming an adult beverage. But for this, I did pour one small glass of rye. So if you see me like drop in a concerning way, you can go ahead and dial 911 and give them my address and tell them where to send the medics. All right.
I'll just call the non-emergency numbers. I'll be like, it's fine. I know it's wrong. You don't need to rush.
It's not emergency. He's a big guy. He'll be fine.
He's fine. Rush Limbaugh did this for decades.
I don't have his tolerance.
Oh, that's messed up. That's a good play on words. I like it. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to our first Two Dads Talking live stream, which we're really doing just to record later because we don't expect any of you to actually be awake and watching this right now. But if you are, life choices. We'll discuss that later.
We didn't expect to do this tonight. We were going to log on to a 10-minute talk, and then we decided before we started not to record tonight. And somehow
just do some troubleshooting.
Right. And somehow we wound up going, well, let's play with StreamYard and see how this works. And that turned into, well, let's do, a recording. And that turned into, let's do the Terrence Howard thing. And we don't know what we're doing. So thanks for tagging
that's the best
along.
part.
We'll probably release the audio as a podcast episode, right? That's the guess.
When you've been listening to someone radio or whatever for a while and you finally see a picture of them somewhere and you're like, oh, I didn't think they looked like that.
You're welcome to that feeling.
Here you go. Of course, pick the night when I'm not wearing a collared shirt again.
See, he never actually wears a collared shirt. I don't know why he says
it's not true.
The man has never once worn a collared shirt on this cast. Don't listen to him. Someone send that man a collared shirt, please.
I have a backup right here just so you can't chastise me.
Well, at least you have the Avid shirt on. That's good. I like that you're wearing an Avid shirt.
That's true. Our first sponsor.
You could have at least worn the Two Dads Talking podcast shirt. You could have.
I didn't know.
So for those who don't know, I sent Doug, out of the kindness of my heart, a T-shirt with the Two Dads Talking logo, one of the first runs of the Gen 2. And Doug complained about it, and he was not happy with it. And my generosity went unappreciated, as this so often does. And he won't even wear it on the podcast.
As I said previously, it just hits different when it says XL pink. It's just not the same.
Yes, I did send him a pink shirt. I absolutely did.
Yeah.
But he looked very dashing in it.
I have worn it a couple of times. It
gets attention, doesn't it?
I was going to say it's probably the best color shirt for this because I've caught people. Now, here's the problem. So usually I catch people obviously looking at my wife. And now there's a couple of times when I think I've caught it, and then I'm like, wait, were they looking at my chest? And I just don't know. So it's really shrouded my life in mystery lately. This is what counts for mystery. I think we should just get into this. I don't know. Do you have anything else to
No, let's just
talk about before you collapse?
Nope, we don't need to do any more. We're good. Let's try to get through this little hype video.
Yeah, so, and I will try. I was going to say I will try to not be like Tom pause too many times.
Oh, I'm sure we're going to pause plenty of times to stop and talk. I expect that. If we don't, we're not doing this right. So the preface for this video, for anyone who hasn't seen it, and it turns out this thing is like 3 years old or 4 years old, maybe even older than that. So how I didn't know about it for so long is a mystery because this kind of stuff is usually right up in my alley. Terrence Howard, you may know him as the actor from Empire. You may know him from Hustle and Flow. You may know him as the War Machine actor that didn't get brought back for Iron Man 2 for lots of reasons.
Gee, I wonder why.
You might know him for a lot of reasons. His recent quotes about why he shouldn't have to pay taxes. There are a lot of reasons you might know him. But Terrence Howard, turns out, is an interesting, fascinating human being. He has fixed math, identified a fundamental problem in our mathematical, our whole mathematical process. He has fixed it. He's released his own math. He calls it Terryology, and it is his own thing, and he has patented it, and he's released it. You can find videos on it. He has hired a bunch of scientists, and they're working on harmonic reprogrammers. He talks about it in this video. Anyway, he's a very interesting guy, and he's made these incredible discoveries. And I stumbled across this video just luckily on YouTube, and I sent it to Doug, and I said, "Hey, Doug, when you've got about 30 minutes, give this a listen, give this a watch. I kind of just want your reaction."
If you want to know what a dickhole friend does, I need you to be in a clear headspace for about 25 minutes and watch this and let me know what you think. And I'm like, okay, this is weird. And 2 minutes in, I'm like, God damn it, Tom! But now I have to watch it.
It's worth the watch, and it's entertaining. And I'm kind of sorry that we're going to be doing a little bit of commentary as it goes on and ruining it for you. But I'm only a little sorry, and you should enjoy it. And yeah. Should we just dive into it? So he was invited to Oxford University, and this is not the full presentation he gave because that's about an hour long, and it's way too late for us to do that right now. We're just both tired. This is like a 25-minute hype video that someone did for it. It's, in my opinion, fully on the propaganda bandwagon, and that makes it great. And I'm ready to talk some Terrence Howard.
Oh my God.
Cheers to you for our first effort at this, my friend.
Yes. Let me poke there. Cheers. Clunk.
Cheers. All right, let's get into this.
The misspelled clink. The clunk.
Let's let a Hollywood actor tell us what we've been doing wrong for our entire history.
Oh, this is my favorite.
Well, DaVinci tried to do it 80. I did it 6 years old because I'd been working on it, perhaps from a past life. Now, I'm not trying to say I'm crazy or there's reincarnation or anything, but we know that energy does not die.
I hate to pause it already. I should have also said this person took this presentation all out of order. He doesn't give it chronologically. Whoever put this together for Terrence Howard, or because they were in love with what he said, from the Wisdom website, which has a lot of Terrence Howard stuff on it, they took stuff from the middle and put it in the front, and then stuff in the end and put it in the beginning, and then they went back and forth and back and forth. So this is not chronological. And yes, Terrence Howard did say that he solved at 6 years old the mystery that DaVinci had been working on his whole life. He did say that. You heard it right.
I was gonna.
Go ahead.
I was gonna make that point. Was just he's like, oh yeah, this like generational genius. Yeah, I figured it out when I was just getting out of diapers.
And it was so much better in the interview I heard him do with Joe Rogan too. He talks about how he came to consciousness 6 months old in the womb, and he woke up and was like, "Oh, I'm here. Don't forget, don't forget, don't forget." And oh, it's fantastic. We'll do that one on a separate one. Okay.
Energy just reboots itself. So we are eternal. So stop panicking, thinking your life is over. You've done this trillions of times.
Trillions.
That's good news. Trillions.
Howard's confessions pierce the darkness, unraveling a tapestry of secrets that have remained hidden for generations.
But my question actually has to do with your numbers theory. So if by your logic you say 1 times 1 equals 2, are you insinuating that 1 times 0 then equals 1?
Equals 1. Well, that's what we were saying with the identity principle, the identity property. It says that 1 times nothing equals nothing. Something. So now you have the laws of physics have to now adjust because something just disappeared. Conservation.
I'm sorry. I'm already dying a little bit here.
We're not going to make it through this whole video.
We're not going to make it through this video. Okay. You know, it's a good thing no one's watching this yet. I'm going to let it go again. We're just going to let it run. It gets better when he starts really going, but I love the hype man already. Like, I really love the way whoever edited this just puts this forward as Terrence Howard being a brave soul and just illuminating us with his vast wisdom.
Of energy can't be created or destroyed. So if 1 times 0 equals 0, then what happened to the energy of the 1? Isn't that the same problem that Stephen Hawking were talking about with the event horizon and the information going in and still being present, that conflict that was started? Well, that's because of the math. The principles in the math are not founded on truth. It's not founded on substance. The identity principle, anything times 0 is 0, and anything times 1 is 1. Where is that number? Where is that exemplified in nature or in universal phenomena? Is it? Do you see that?
So
Go ahead, Doug. Go ahead.
I just, it's like, I don't even know where to begin. It's one of those things where I have a log jam of so many things that I want to say, and then it ends up coming out with just like, okay, dude, good luck. You just kind of walk off. He's just doing the whole like, oh, you have 1 and you multiply it by 0. And now you have 0. Where did it go? Physics says no, that doesn't happen. It's like, but we're not talking about physics. We're talking about mathematics. When you do 1 times 0, it's just theoretical. And it's just it would be perfectly logical to say you have 0 and you multiply it by 1. It's like, well, yes, you still have 0 because you always had 0, and you like he's just picking which one to put in front of him. We haven't even gotten to the quarters yet. I'm gonna die when we get there.
I think it's tough right now because I kind of want to jump right into, clearly this is someone who doesn't understand that math, what multiplication is in math. He doesn't understand the concept of multiplication, and I kind of want to talk about that. But I also kind of feel like it's just too early to bring that up based on where I know he's going. So I'm just gonna let it run.
Yeah, we should do more of like the let it run, and when there's something that like we literally can't contain ourselves.
Okay, that's fair.
Here's going to be the signal.
are you saying that 1 times 5 would be 6?
Yeah. Well, what does it say in the associative and commutative thing?
So you're
If A and B
proposing,
are positive integers, it says if A and B are positive integers, A is to be added to itself as many times as it's indicated by units in B.
so you're not proposing an audit, you're proposing like a
Oh, well, I'm not
reconstruction of the way we understand math.
You know what's interesting? In 1856, a man from Liverpool named Richard Dover Stack
Who you've never heard of before.
the decimal system and said that it was wrong
The Dewey Decimal System.
and created an entirely new system to show how it can be brought into correction. So I'm not the first person to.
Okay, I got to ask here because I honestly don't know. Is the Dewey Decimal System used for anything other than organizing books in a library?
Now
I'll show my ignorance here. What else is it used for?
Terrence Howard Ma.
Okay, so we're using the Dewey Decimal System, which apparently was proven to be wrong to define physics and mathematics. That's what I'm understanding. I got to look this up later and see if there's any other use for the Dewey Decimal System because now I'm concerned I've been missing out on something.
Say this. That's a number of people did it, but look up Richard Dover Statter. Try and find him. You won't find him because he's been erased from history almost.
Your view on consciousness and energy sounds very similar to what Dr. Robert Lanza proposes in biocentrism. So that may be of interest to you if you haven't read that text. But about 5 years ago, you spoke about harmonic wave sequencing and how that could
Harmonic wave resequencing.
and how that could possibly solve cancer or genetic ailments within the next 5 years. I think that was about 5 years ago. So
Where is it, bro? Is like what he's saying. I feel like I should have Usher in the middle of this video be like,
code people's genetics.
Simple. Our DNA is made up of what? 5 elements, right? Hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, and oxygen. You know how
So far, so good.
yep,
the phosphorus sits right here in the middle, and
boom.
you've got 4 oxygen atoms surrounding it.
Yeah, I don't know how it's actually structured, but I do know those are the red 5.
These are the legs.
Ooh, the word "the" is capitalized. Must be important.
Double helix. These are the legs. Now, the latter steps on it, they become the adenine, the guanine, the cytosine, the thymine, the ATCGs. It turns out hydrogen, they used to think that energy the body transferred or understood the energy information through electricity. They're finding out it's through frequency. Well, guess what hydrogen sounds like? It's a key of E. Guess what? And it's the color yellow. That's
Did you look any of this up to check this? Like, I want to Google this and take a look, and I haven't done it yet. I mean, I know they give off some frequency. They give off something, obviously. I know as the molecules are spinning and reversing, they create a frequency that's discernible and unique. Like, I know that. I have no idea what it is. You didn't look any of this up? I thought you might have.
No, I didn't have time for this.
3 weeks.
Exactly. Oh, you did look up I have flashes of conversations with my 6-year-old watching this video because he's saying things like, oh, they communicate with frequency. And I'm like, frequency is not a form of communication. It is a measurement of communication. Frequency is how much up and down the communication goes. It's not the communication. You can't communicate with frequency. It's like, what was it the other day? My 6-year-old, she was saying something like, oh, it's so far away that you can't take a car. And she goes, oh, so you can't get there. And I was like, no, you can't get there. It's like he takes things that are true, or at least mostly true, like, oh, you have your phosphorus and it's got the hydrogen atoms around it. But then it's like, then he takes kid logic and just goes off to the races.
Yeah, he starts off on good footing, right? He really, I wonder if this is how Scientology kind of got started. Like somebody was just sitting around bored and they were reading a book and like, wow, this all sounds really plausible. Like this has some really fantastic future scientific.
The reason he has a grounding is because a lot of this is that disprovable stuff that I have used to my advantage before. Go, continue, Jesus.
Oxygen is a chartreuse, and it's the key of F over F sharp. Now they used it, like I said.
What color is it?
Information used to be thought about as just electrical information passing on. But I got a question for you. Have you ever been at a party with some of your friends you ain't seen in 10 years? But y'all like 14. You hung out and the song that came on, and you're like, and everybody got
never done that.
Live at that moment. Now,
You haven't really lived.
I guess not.
He's a good guy, but he wasn't there when me and my boys formed it. So when that song comes on, our DNA tightens.
Ooh, tightens.
Song, yeah, in the genome for each and every one of us. Now, when that song is played, your particular prime resonant frequency is played. Guess what happens?
Prime resonant. You notice he snuck that in there. Like, oh,
yeah.
It's like I've never heard of a prime resonant before. He's just like, oh yeah, the prime resonant. Anyway, moving on.
But that's what he does so well, honestly, is he drops these things in there like they're just common knowledge and everyone knows what that is. So why would you stop to ask? Why would you, it's perfect the way that he does that. He does that so well.
You go, excuse me, sir. Hi. Yes. He goes, what? And you're like, what? Sorry. What's the prime resonant? And he'll be like, you don't know what the prime resonant is?
Right. And then he'll throw some other word at you and defining it just as commonly.
It's part of the frequency equilibrium that your entire body decomposes on a daily basis every night when you go to bed. We'll talk about this later.
Harmonic wave frequency. The carbon is also the key of E in yellow. Nitrogen is G. And all these play a song. So say that the F over F sharps of the oxygen, the green, is only hitting at an F. Why? Because there's another frequency coming in from a generator over there that's changing and causing it to change. So this F now hits the oxygen. And when it hits, when the F hits the carbon, so instead of hitting as an F sharp, it hits as an F. So when it hits the carbon at an E, it doesn't hit it quite right. So the domino don't file right. So the next domino hits wrong. And so now we have malformation happening within our DNA because the frequencies are being pushed off. But when we hear our tone, we tighten back up. So yeah, I'm in the process of building the harmonic wave resequencer with another doctor who has been able to successfully cure AIDS and cancer. And it's well on the way. But I wanted you guys.
Okay. So he's working with a doctor who has cured AIDS and cancer to build a frequency reorganizer. Is what we're going to call this thing?
Yes. That's why you haven't seen as much of them anymore, obviously.
Because he's cured it. You know what's funny is I had to go check
Richard
on this.
Stover.
So I didn't look up Richard Stover, but I did check to see how many patents Terrence Howard holds that are that I could find. He's got like 100 patents. He's not kidding about that. He has patented a lot of this stuff. When he starts talking about that, he is dead serious. No, we haven't gotten there yet, so I'm jumping the gun. But
let's just have a side note about patents. Okay, patents are unique. Okay. I mean, admittedly, it's hard to actually get a patent. You can't just apply for anything. Lots of applications go out there and they don't get approved. But I mean, I think a patent is meant to be. I should pull up the actual definition because it's basically something along the lines of something that is not typically thought of or that a typical person would not put together. So I believe it that he has a lot. What's more impressive is that he actually plunked the literally hundreds of thousands of dollars probably into those hundreds of patents. I mean, I guess you can do it when you're, War Machine.
See, that's what you're impressed with. I'm impressed that they've cured cancer and AIDS. I really am. It's not quite as cool as his new form of flight. And I don't know if he talks about it in here or he gets into another interview.
Honestly, Tom, they had it coming. Cancer and AIDS, they were asking for it. So
they did. And who knew that all along, all we needed was War Machine to bring the war to them and fix this. And
harmony, frequency, decomposure, holonizing.
I think Marvel should have paid this man all the money he wanted for Iron Man 2. I mean, the guy's curing cancer and curing AIDS. Why wouldn't you want him as part of your movie? I don't understand.
Some things will just never
understand how that works. It's so simple. You do not need to tear the human body apart when all you can do is use frequency to bring it back to its normal space.
In the dim glow of midnight, Terrence Howard descended from the shadows, bearing secrets that...
In the dim glow of midnight, he descended from the shadows. He's Dracula now. This man is now Dracula.
Or Batman. No, oh my God.
The hype man who put this together is so fantastic. I love it.
Remember how you said, don't get us canceled? I just thought of something to say to get us canceled.
Please don't. Keep it in. Keep that in. Keep the filter in place.
I have control of the ticker on this video. I can put it there.
I'm so proud of you.
Okay, go.
Control on a live stream. I'm so proud of you. So proud of you, Doug. Let's see what else he has to say to hype up Terrence Howard.
Okay, fine. I'll stop. I'll tell you later.
that could shatter reality itself.
Do you think that the reason that we have an economic crisis, for example, is because we are not understanding our numbers correctly according to your theory?
Well, I think we have an economic problem because we are the only creatures in this universe that use currency. There are no other creatures that use currency in order to exist. Why is it that we chose this strange thing that isn't even real? Other creatures drink water, they eat fruit, they eat other animals. We exchange with currency, and our system of exchanging with currency is flawed because of greed. Mm-hmm. There's not like if 1 times 1 equals 2, we've got an equilibrium of balance. 1 times 1 equals 1, you've got loss. When 1 times 1 equals 3 or more, you're talking about over unity, supersymmetry. And that's how you get to unity.
There you go again. Over unity and supersymmetry. Dropped in there like they're just, just dropped in there like these are words you should know or you're too stupid to talk to him.
This is what done. This is what I want people to understand. This is why he gets away with it, because he just said, we're the only creatures who use currency. And you're like, why, yes, that is true. Okay, I'm listening because you said a true thing. And then he just goes, blah, 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 blah. And at the end, you're like, wait, what the fuck did I just hear? you literally can't process it, and he keeps going. So you're like, well, he said that true thing at the beginning that I understand. So probably most of the rest of what he said is true. But he went from we're the only creatures to use currency to like 1 times 3 is over unity.
Yep. And supersymmetry is panharmonic resonance with supersynchronous ada bida buddha bada bada bing bong ding dongs.
And the way to stop this and get you kicked out of the auditorium is to be like, wait, just define those words real quick.
Right. Can you imagine if an Oxford student had done that and said, I'm sorry, what is supersymmetry? Just a simple question, reasonable enough. What would the response have been, do you think?
Is it like symmetry by the book?
He talks about it in some of his other interviews that I found, where he's talked about the new form of flight that he's invented and patented. And it's supersymmetry.
I want to hear the definitions of these things, because I don't think he would just go like, I don't think he'd glare at you and be like, get the fuck out. Like, I think he would be like, oh, it's the superstrings between all of the dimensions vibrating together at the same frequency at the same time. And when you do one music at your prime resonant body, it connects with your other bodies in the other universes. And that becomes your supersymmetry, because normally you're just vibrating like this while your other body's another universe is vibrating like this. But when you do a supersymmetry, it's all together, and then all your phosphori and all the oxygens work in unison. Like, he'd probably say something like that.
Yeah, and honestly, what you said flies. I would buy that. It makes sense.
And, right, and then the part of you's like, oh, well, shit, I guess, okay, maybe there's no end to this rabbit hole. Maybe he's figured something out. I don't know. He's just like, there's people like Terrence Howard, and there's people in prison who send you the weird glyphs saying they figured stuff out.
Oh, which reminds me, we should talk about this after we're done recording. You know how I mess with those spammers that send me the spam texts, and I kind of mess them with sending some screenshots? I got one to threaten to shoot me with a 7mm and hire a hitman on the dark web to come to my house.
Wait, a 7mm?
Yeah, I laughed pretty hard. I'm like, I'm sorry, you're threatening with a 7mm. And it turns out, it's been used by, it's potent.
Is that like a musket?
It's like a 280 is what it is. It's like any 280 caliber weapon. That's the closest thing to it. So it's a lot of powder for a small bullet. It's boom, and it would work. So that's where he went, and it made me laugh.
Maybe he'll coordinate with the CIA, and they'll take out both of us at the same time.
Maybe it could happen.
For you, instead of using just the solar voltaics off of it, you also use the piezoelectric effects of it. You use other things to make greater unity. But 1 times 1 equaling 1, when it could also equal a pound times a pound equaling a pound, when it could also equal $4 or $10 or $100. Does that make sense to you? Do you?
No, it does not make sense. A pound times a pound is a pound squared. What are you talking about? You're talking about units of measurement at that point. Oh, Terrence Howard.
But okay. To his credit, philosophizer in me is coming out here now.
I love it.
If you accept some of his premises, this makes sense. If currency is fake and made up, then a pound times a pound in currency could be anything.
Sure.
And this is an actual nerding out. Sorry, everybody. In formal logic, like the actual field, like you go to a college, you take a class called formal logic. One of the things they teach you is that if you find a logical contradiction in your problem that you're trying to solve, you can now state anything. And this is real, like ethereal, whatever crap, where they just say like, make this symbol equal this symbol. And they have all their little rules, and you have to like break it down like one of those old math geometry proofs. Sometimes the way to solve those problems is you just find a logical contradiction, and then you're allowed to say whatever you want, and that can help you get to the answer that they're trying to get you to. It sounds like a cheat at first. You're like, well, that's stupid. Like, if you find a logical contradiction, then you're allowed to say whatever you want. It's kind of like a cheat code for your problem. But the point is that you've just proven that the set of circumstances that you were given can't exist. And so because you're in a formal logic plane of not actual reality, you're allowed to start with a problem just the same way that your question giver started with a problem. So what he's saying from a logic perspective can actually make sense. if you say, well, this currency stuff is all made up, then you kind of have a right to not believe anything else that the authority figures say about currency. So that's why certain people can buy this, because as long as you buy the first 2 or 3 things, this actually makes sense. This is the logical conclusion, if you will, from that. But that's why you have to be like, no, like I can't just, the police will come get me if I do something without currency.
Well, not if you're operating at your
that's
resonant frequency.
Well, right,
but
that's real, and that's the problem here. Is he's trying to say that we have some sort of shade of reality. He's probably Hindu.
Interesting, actually, I did not look up to see what he practices.
He's probably not Buddhist, because that's more of an internal path. But Hinduism also, at least some of the Orthodox Hindu, I don't even know if I'm saying this right. Orthodox Hinduism, some of those practices believe that the only thing you can be sure of is your own existence, because you know your own mind. You don't know anyone else's mind. This could be literally a projection that your mind is creating for yourself, everything you see. So he could be practicing something like that. Wouldn't surprise me. And it would align with some of his religious views.
Interesting.
Think the banks are abusing that?
You are welcome.
Times a quarter. If I ask anybody in this room, what's a quarter times a quarter? That's 25 times 25.
625 quarters.
But we know 25 pence times 25 pence is 625 pence. That's 6 pounds and 25 pence. But the computer or the banks only have to give you 6 1/4 cents reference. Well, let's say you put a dime times a dime. Oh, let me get this out. Say you pay a dime times a dime. You put that in your calculator. It says 1 cent. 0.10 times 0.10 is 1 cent. But we know a dime times a dime is a whole dollar. But the banks gives us money.
Please pause it.
Is that fair? And I might get shot about talking about this right now. But I've got a book coming.
Pause.
Pause.
I'm sorry. A dime times a dime. We know that that's a dollar. Again, he says it with such confidence. This is obviously truism. That it's like there's no room to debate it in the moment. If you don't stop and go, that doesn't work right away, then it just gets in there and it sticks and you think it's okay. A dime times a dime is a dollar.
Like a cancer. Well,
good, because he can cure that. That's fine. He can cure that.
I know a guy. But when when you said we should do our first stream around the Terrence Howard video, the first thing I thought of was this part of the video, because it was just like, in Tommy Boy, when he's going like this,
and his hair
sticks up, and it's just like, that was like what I did the first time I watched this part of the video. I was like, no. A dime is 0.1 times 0.1. It's not 10. It's 0.1. He just decides to switch mid whatever. Oh, well, when it's in currency, this fake thing, you motherfuckers, they give you another fake output that's based on fake math. But if you look at the real number, it's 10. And so when you have 10 of the fake number, now you get a 1, which is different. So he uses only half of the fake. He should say it's $100 if he wants to be really consistent. He should say it's 10 times 10, so it's $100. It's not 10 times the fake thing. This is why this pissed me off, because I was like, he didn't even stick to his own logic. If you're going to say currency is fake, then you can't use a part of the fake thing for your fake, for your
I just love that he doesn't differentiate the difference between a dime and, the fact that it represents a number that is equal to 0.10. Like, a dime is a representation. A dime times 10, yes, that's a dollar. That's 10 units of dime. But 0.1 times 0.1 is not a number that gets bigger. When you're multiplying by less than 1, the number does not get bigger, Terrence. And again, the guy just does not understand.
He just changes it, though. He says a dime times a dime is this, is what the banks say, but then he says it's a dime is actually this, but then he still multiplies it by a dime. It's like, no, you need to just lean into it, bro. Go for 100.
Well, maybe some good will come. Maybe he will open a bank that practices teriology, and we can all go open accounts, and then we can just get stupid rich off of teriology. Maybe that's how that works.
I have to send an email to him. I have a proposal. Hey Terrence, I'll give you $5 as an investment to start your bank, and you that should match your contribution of your fake currency money that you made making movies.
Well, I think you have to do it with something with a decimal point in it to keep his math, to keep profitable, to keep taking advantage and exploiting his math. So, you send him 0.5, but you tell him you do it every month. So multiply that by 12. And that's what I'm going to send you every year. It's $0.5 times 12 or $0.5,000 for 12 months. And then you go ahead and send me back,
I wonder
probably
how
just
much
10% interest.
when people get their like towing fee and they bring it in all pennies, I wonder what Terrence thinks that's worth. It's probably a lot. It's probably
a lot.
Probably
it's his
an
Iron Man
overpayment.
2 contract.
It's an overpayment. Oh,
Over Unity.
That's how they did it. That's how they got him. It's cheap. Okay.
$1 equal $1, or does $1 times $1 equal $2? And in the process, not only do I explain the death of the Platonic solids, but I also introduce the new Terrian wave conjugations that replace this Euclidean way of life and gives us a three-dimensional way of seeing the world.
The moonlit alley echoed with the weight of Terrence Howard's revelation, a clandestine truth that had remained veiled in the recesses of his enigmatic mind.
That's what I'm saying.
For the record, his mind is extremely enigmatic.
Everything is moonlit, and oh my gosh, that's beautiful.
Oh yeah, Tom, because all
so
the
good.
mysterious stuff just happens during the day, obviously.
I mean, as a former midnight shift officer, I will agree that the craziest shit does happen after midnight.
Holy shit, he's airborne and it's lunchtime. Oh my goodness.
Do you want to see the world in 2D or do you want to see it in 3D? Because our math right now is 2D. Our math is black and white and stick figures. I want the world in multicolor spectral vision.
Idealistic.
1 pound times 1
Yeah.
pound.
It's all for the betterment of the world.
But it's 1 pound squared, which
I just feel like we're gonna see a bunch of punch bowls and dead people in like 30 years around Terrence Howard's house.
Can you divide pounds? Can you divide money?
No.
If you can divide it, you can multiply it. All these
Yes.
things that I showed you guys, I patented all these things.
Mm-hmm.
You know why I patented them? Because in
Patented.
1927, wrote a book called
That's like a bad porno.
And in it, he introduced an entirely new periodic table. And there he introduced the two heavy water elements, and then
Ice?
plutonium and deuterium. Both of those, all four of those elements that had never been discovered, he sent out to 800 different universities in his book. 2 years later, he watched as other people came and got Nobel Prizes for his work. Why?
I
Because
want to fact check that.
he didn't
I want to see
copy
that.
So I
Wait, so you're
copied
telling
all
me
these things.
people stole other people's work? That never happens. I patented them so that it couldn't get stolen, because people also don't steal patents and do work around
They
patents
are
either.
true. And I think there's some value to them. The money is there's nothing wrong with the money, but how we deal with the money. But if you can divide money, you can multiply it. It works hand in hand. Okay, or you can't see that. You can't see dividing
No,
money.
it's a matter of
It's
definition. If you define, it's a matter of definition. A pound squared is not a unit defined.
a
Brave
pound
soul.
square.
If
Yeah.
you multiply by mathematical convention, if you multiply 1 pound by 1 pound, same
We
as
already
if you
said
multiply
that's
1
fake,
meter by 1
motherfucker.
meter, it'd be 1 pound squared or 1 square
It
meter.
becomes two. Why does it become 1 pound squared? Is two, isn't it? Now, if you look at remember what I just said about the social.
There it is, Tom. It's like you said. He's like, no,
It's
you're wrong. It's
A is
obviously this.
ethics.
We know this. Why are you
As many
talking
times as
crazy?
it can be. The only thing that prevents that is the identity element that sits up and says, no, the Jim Crow law says black people sit in the back of the bus because that's what the law says, without even having a foundation for it. 1 times 1 times any number is that number without the foundation. There's no principle. It just says
But if you go by your logic and you say 1 times 1 is 2, 1 times 2
Two,
is
three.
3, and then how would you define 2 times 4? Is that's just
all that remains the same. Anything with 1, just add 1. The first rule of
Okay, then what is the difference between addition and multiplication?
Well, multiplication is what? Exaggerated addition.
Pause.
Isn't it?
Pause.
But it's not a matter of mathematical.
Did you notice how she caught him?
Yes.
Then what's 2 times 4? Oh, well, it all stays the same. Like, obviously. Like, it's just... He did not want to answer that, and he instead went back to the vagary bushes of, well, isn't it just exaggerated addition? It's like, okay, well, then what's 2 times 4?
I feel like a big part of this is that he needs to sit down and explain his understanding of multiplication, because he continues to equate it to like the grammatical definition of the word instead of looking at the mathematical concept. And he did it at one point a little while ago. He gave basically the description definition of it, but then he ignored the fact that he said it, and that, the definition as it stands explains why 1 times 1 is 1 and 1 times 0 is 0. Like, he glossed over that real quick. I guess he didn't see his cause. And I do want to take a moment to pause and thank Tam for chiming in the comments as we're streaming. At least we had one person listening after our first toes in the water. Yeah, the woman who said that you are not a psychopath for eating your burger necessarily. Oh no, I see some comments here. I see Tam, and she's actually praising Terrence Howard as a very intelligent person with just a different way of thinking. And she's chiming in right now. Hi, Tam. She just said hi. She's got like 6 comments on the feed. I love Tam. She's so great. Her and her man both are just fantastic people. I did listen to him on Rogan, Tam. I see the comment. I listened to the whole 3-hour show. You and I are gonna have to talk about this the next time we can sit down and talk. You and I will talk about this, because you laugh, but Tam's got a great input. And Tam
I know. Well, that's the thing. Like, I hear stuff like this, and I think, okay, I disagree wholeheartedly. But people said once upon a time, people were saying things that were, in at least conventionally, more ridiculous than this, and they got like literally crucified for it. I mean, like, you want to talk about the sun circling the earth, was like the thing back in the day, and things were much worse if you said it. They didn't have patents to protect you, so. Right. I at least like the fact that stuff like this can get out here, because what it does is it does engage. To be fair, I do sit here and I'm like, well, wait, I do actually feel differently, and I have to explain to myself why I feel differently. So as long as he's not, like I said, bringing people around a bunch of punch bowls in 20 years and telling them that it's time to drink everybody, like, I'm actually, you're allowed to say this stuff, and every so often someone comes out with something that sounds kooky, and it's like, oh, it's actually right. So I'm not like against this in practice. It's just I just can't get on board right now. Terrence, you got to give me a little bit more, bro. That's really it.
Yeah, I'm actually really glad that stuff like this can come out.
Yeah, that's good.
That things that can be said. But there comes a point in this talk where when he's saying things, I start to think it gets a little bit dangerous. And that's where I'm just like, whoa, hold on. We're leading people down a really dangerous path. But we'll get to that later. For now,
and then the video starts and goes back to where it should have started.
Right. Yeah, this is all way into the talk, by the way. So we talked about the editor did this really not in chronology.
Yeah, like the last 3 minutes, like, oh, this should have been all the way over here at the beginning.
Yeah. Yep, I'm looking forward to doing a fuller version of this just on Patreon with like the whole Oxford thing. Maybe that'll be a Patreon exclusive where we just go straight through the whole Oxford thing, and we can do some fact checking and make that a long one. That might be a fun little Patreon.
Yeah, that might be. We'll have to pause less.
If it was defined in video, it could have been defined differently, but logical, it makes the most sense. Sorry. Is it a matter of mathematical convention? If you define beforehand that something, like, logically, it makes the most sense of 1 times 1. If you have one laptop, 1 times a laptop is 1 laptop. That makes more sense than you say it's 2 laptops.
Well, now if you say,
and then that's where the mathematical convention comes in, and that's like most like large part of math is convention. It's how it has been defined. It's a matter of definition.
And it's wonderful. The convention is all right if the material and the information being shared in the convention is true. But when you're talking about dogma being added in with that thing that I showed you, did you look at the square root of 2? Do you think that that's a loop? That's a natural.
This was the other part of the video I thought of, by the way.
Did you believe that?
This is like,
hear your thoughts on this.
This is so close to actual truth, though. Like, he's almost there.
It's not the same, though. It's not the same with pi. What we just did, we multiplied, we cubed the number, and then we divided it by 2, and we cubed it again and divided it by 2, and we did that a number of times, and that number still remained the same exact number, which we know cannot happen.
As the city slept, Terrence Howard unveiled a cryptic journal, each page etched with the forbidden knowledge that could rewrite the destiny of nations.
It's right.
I should not have taken a sip before he chimed in because that rye almost came out of my nose.
The destiny of nations. Honestly, this narrator is like my new favorite character. It's like my spirit animal.
The narrator is fantastic. He really did make some wonderful choices here, and I love it. I absolutely love what he does here.
Well, so what Terrence is saying here is actually a good point. It is, and it's one of those things where you have to. I feel like you have to catch yourself because there's another like proof where you can show that 0.9 repeated, like 0.9999999 often to infinity equals 1, because you just multiply that. If you say x equals 0.9 forever. And then what does 10x equal? 10x equals 9.9999999. 10x minus x equals 9x. Like, and then you basically show that x equals 1 when you're pumping out this like new solution for x. So then you're saying, well, 1 equals 0.999999999, which mathematically you can sort of agree makes sense, but it's not technically the same because you have a 0 first. So he's doing this kind of thing where he finds what's essentially a little exception to the convention and says, oh, well, it's all fake. And like we were talking about with formal logic, to him, this is his contradiction. You have the mathematical system. I found something that logically contradicts. It shows in his mind that the convention doesn't work. And therefore, the whole convention has to be scrapped, and I can basically start anew. So that's why it makes sense. But really, and I asked a math teacher about this when I was in high school because I had this same thing. I was like, oh, wait a minute. Hold on a second here, big guy. How should I believe anything else you say at this point, like he's doing? And the guy said, well, math isn't perfect. It's our way to try to figure out what the world is doing. And since we're not perfect, we're not going to come up with a perfect system. It's just like you're going to have exceptions to the rule, or in this case, like in his mind, he basically said, if you found the actual perfect way to represent what the world is doing, you wouldn't have stuff like this. But we don't have that. We're limited because of our scope of seeing the world and the universe. But so this is why he's right there. It's so close. It's like, no, just say, well, this is proof that there's maybe a better way to do it, but you don't scrap the whole system because of it.
I'm so glad I do this with you. I'm glad I have a smart co-host for this, because if it was someone else dumb like me, this wouldn't get very far.
I don't know. I feel like you already stopped me from canceling us, though, so I'm not even having any fun.
I'll be the parent. You be the smart child. I'm good with that.
That's even worse.
3, 5, 6, 2, 3, 7, 3, 0, 9, 5, ... is the square root of 2. But we know that that's not the case. I tried to do it 80. I did it 6 years old because I've been working on it perhaps from a past life. We know that energy does not die.
It's very quick, though.
But DaVinci was not.
So we are eternal.
As the moon cast an enigmatic glow
Here
over
we
the
go.
city,
We give him the
Terrence
moon.
Howard emerged from the
It's
shadows.
an enigmatic, just like
ready
his
to unveil a
brain.
trove of hidden knowledge that could reshape destinies.
If you lose
Of
that little
nations.
spark that kept you motivated, that little piece, like this is my vocation. I love acting half the time, but there's some downfalls. You know, a lot of actors end up with personality identity crisis and conflicts because you have so many characters you're playing. And if you really commit to the characters, you become like a piece of clothing. And your body becomes what they put on. And the character has a tendency of wanting to own you. They don't let go. What you saw in Anthony Hopkins and Hannibal Lecter, that monster lives in him. That's why we believed it. He had to tap into something very ugly in our human nature sometimes. And as an actor, sometimes I tap into beautiful things. But like with Lucius, the character I play with Lucius, his life is filled with turmoil. So 90%.
I really like what he just said there, actually. Like I heard someone else that I shared this video that was like, that's all such a bunch of crap, such a bunch of hooky. As a writer, I feel this. There are times where I write things and it troubles me and I kind of have to go to a dark place and it sticks with me for a while. I get that. And I can't help but think of like Heath Ledger and the Joker.
I thought that too.
That was my first thought. Yeah. And I think there's really something to this. It's one of those things he talks about that I think is probably very true. That, that's probably a weight you have to carry as an actor, you know?
Well, I was going to say, it's actually, in my mind, it's even darker than ironically, than what he says. My personal belief is that most people, not all people, have little elements of everything in them. And it's just a question of which beast you feed. So he says, oh, Anthony Hopkins and Hannibal Lecter, it was so believable because that's a little bit of who he is what he said. And I think part of the reason it's believable is because everyone can, at some little tiny level, connect with it. You can't even be understood as a character unless you have some sort of empathy, which requires some sort of shared experience. And that's why I think serial killers are, like we've talked about before, are so interesting, because you can't connect with them at all. You hear what they do and you're like, that makes no sense. That's why they're so fascinating. Everyone else, including like, a Hannibal Lecter type, or a tragic hero or an anti-hero or, all that, people can connect with that. So I think what he said is right, but I think he can actually even go further and say that we all have a little bit of that inside of us. And that's why it was believable, because there's some tiny little piece of us that says, maybe I could have been like that if things went really south for me.
I concur. Well said, sir.
Yeah, great. Nerdy, smart stepchild.
The wolf you feed is the one that will grow.
And then you have to.
We should just call that this stream.
Really
there you go.
Yourself back to who you are, because that's the most important thing. That's the thing that's going to bother you more than anything else. You will look at yourself one day and you won't know who you are because you don't remember who you were. Sometime along the way, or maybe at 13 or 14, we let go of the little person that kept us going. That little person that was always there. I got you, man. I'm here. I got you. Don't go in there. I ain't going in there. That person, when we get about 13 or 14, we get embarrassed of him. And we push him aside and we don't listen to him anymore. And he's always knocking. Hey. And after so long of a time, maybe 10, 15 years, you don't even know him. You show up at your own door and you don't even know who you are. Your family doesn't know who you are. So it's important, no matter what you do, no matter what challenges you go through, you remember who you are.
The air crackled with tension as Terrence Howard stepped onto the stage, a man burdened with untold truths, about to
just pretend this is at the beginning of the video, everybody.
That is one of the greatest inserts the narrator has in the whole thing. The air was crackling with tension. It's beautiful. That's actually really, really solid.
Fire imagery. It is good.
Lightning.
Call me Ishmael. The air crackled. Like, they're basically the same level.
I'll take it. It works. Tam's signing off. Tam's had enough Hannibal Lecter spirit here, and she's signing off.
Thanks for hanging with us, Tam.
Thank you, Tam. Tell Anthony I said hello, and that you're my favorite.
Right. And that's the thing. He ends with something that's very human, very, it's true. In a way, people are willing to sacrifice some of their own personal thoughts to get to where they think they need to go, and everyone can identify with that. So that's what gets it. I mean, me personally, it was kind of the opposite, but I mean, it's a very relatable message. So that's how he gets you.
Yep, it makes a ton of sense, and I think it's dead right. You think of all the
when he believes it too. He's not just like
things.
He's not spoon feeding you something. Like, he probably really believes it.
Yeah.
So
I think, and that's one of the questions I wanted to have for you after this is all said and done. But honestly, by then it'll be midnight, and I'll be ready for bed.
Almost there.
But that was one of the big questions that I kind of wanted people to chime in. Do you think he believes this, or is he selling it for some other reason? I think he believes everything that he said here. And that goes into the egotism and the narcissism that I think he displays in a lot of other ways. But that's a whole separate discussion. And maybe
Why
that's a
can't it be
separate part.
both? Like,
It
why
can
can't it
be.
be both? Why can't it be like, well, I believe it, but I can't actually answer 2 times 4 because I'm not really sure yet, but I still feel like I'll be able to figure it out someday, you know?
No, it could be.
But it's
No,
part of the deal. You gotta just oh, that guy, don't worry about that little guy. You know, we'll get there.
All right, we need to get through this. We have
We
9 minutes
do.
left. We have to somehow get through this. I have to stop interrupting us.
One of the oldest
God damn it,
symbols
Tom.
in human history, right? Or do you not know?
Or do you not know?
This symbol
You're not.
was found in the Temple of Osiris.
I
in
like
Egypt,
this part.
and it had been molecularly burned into the wall.
Molecularly
2,000 years
burned.
old. This
Like
same
every other
symbol
bird.
is
It's like every single bird.
the forbidden temple in China, sitting under the foo dogs. Flower of life, saying whoever controlled that flower of life controlled the universe. There were secrets in that flower of life that DaVinci spent his whole life trying to uncover. There were secrets in that flower of life that Newton spent his whole life in secret trying to uncover. The same secrets that Pythagoras was desperately trying to uncover. But the problem was they kept seeing this in a 2-dimensional space. They couldn't get it out of this 2-dimensional frame. And as a result, they got stuck in this plane, a flat plane. Now, what Da Vinci and all of them wanted to do, they were trying to find a way to bring this flower to life because what is inside? Well, apparently, there were secrets inside. Shape, they got the Merkaba and all of those other things out. But they were misled by something I think called a straight line.
I love this
You guys
part.
believe in straight lines?
Fuck that. There's no straight.
Well, let me hit you with something. All energy in the universe is expressed in what? It's in motion. If something is still, there's no energy. Kinetic, right? All motion is expressed in what? You look at galaxies.
Can't something be still and have potential energy? Did I
No.
completely misunderstand the definition of potential energy?
No, that's just potential. It's not actual.
Oh, that's quite right.
Always. Show me a straight line in nature. You show me where the platonic solids come. Where do they have their foundation? Are there any straight lines?
Yes.
Any, no straight line.
It's called a force. It's called magnetic force, for God's sake.
Thinking and mixing the temperature of nature.
Beneath the neon light,
Unless he's talking molecular, then no.
each word.
Oh, I'm sure he's talking molecular because that's the level at which the prime resonance frequency operates.
And the burns.
Do you think that's a loop? Do you believe that the square root
That's
of two-
probably actually a good point,
yes or no?
by the way. He
Yeah.
said, "Do you think that's a loop?" And it's like, yes, it actually is, probably. It could be like a math little black hole or whatever that you get stuck in.
Calculate it and turn it to the side so you can get all the long numbers out of it. Okay. Now I want you to put in 2 and square root it. 2, hit the square root, you'll get 1.414213213730955 ... Right?
He's got that memorized pretty well.
You guys do me a favor. Cube.
People memorize the Bible, Tom. It's okay.
And it's see right over there.
Sure.
Can y'all do it? Have you cubed it? It'll see 2.8284271 2174 6190.
Makes him sound smart, right?
Now that makes
Yes,
sense.
it does.
I want you guys to do me a favor.
He did all this in an afternoon.
Get that number,
You can do a whole script overnight, bro.
cube it again.
But can he memorize a stand-up comedy set an hour before the show?
Yes.
Well then, yeah, he's pretty smart.
Any other number that you above 2 that you put in and you cube and you square and divide by 2, by the 6th operation, it has moved into an exponential number that you can't even imagine. Any number
I love this
below
part. He basically disproved it. He's like, well, if you do this with the other number, it doesn't work.
an exponentially small matter and number. This is what we call a loop. It is illogical. It doesn't make sense, and it does not make math make sense. So these are some things that I'm bringing to the fore and that I would like to question. I would like to audit the world of mathematics, and I would like to audit how we view the platonic solids, because I
Perfectly
think the
okay.
wave combinations we'll tell a better story.
I'm on board with that. I'm always on board with auditing and checking
Yeah.
to make sure the things we have are effective. Asking questions is important, and I'm all for it.
Our planet
Agreed.
is moving away from our sun.
Sorry for speaking over you, narrator. You're still my love. You're my hero.
I was gonna say, how dare you, Greta Thunberg? How dare you?
Half a billion years, our planet will be out of the Goldilocks zone.
Okay, so this is wrong. We're not moving 6 inches a year. We're moving 0.6 inches a year. And he actually commented on that on Joe Rogan and said that
So if we're
it was a
going to
mistake.
be able to sustain ourselves as a species, we have to become interstellar.
How do we even figure that out, by the way? Oh, 0.6 inches a year.
You cannot become
I'm sure we do it by the time, the difference in time that the light takes to reach the Earth.
Take you all the way over here with a straight line when the actual event is taking place over here when you're going 600 quadrillion miles. You can't make a mistake. You need precision. And that's
We
what the math is
use
about.
his fake math to figure that out.
Not fake. Alternative. Don't be hateful. It's alternative.
He's like, math sucks, but also here's what math says, and I'm going to use it for my point.
He does a fantastic job, and this is not just here, but in any interview that I've seen since I discovered this, anywhere that I've seen him talk, he does a fantastic job of picking and choosing when things apply and when they don't.
Well, yeah.
It is amazing.
Well, but see, he's
really,
not
really good at this.
But there's the other thing too. I mean, he's very charismatic. He's not just confident. He's not just like, oh yeah, this is true, because people can do that and be, not likable at all. He's likable. He's well spoken. He's well dressed. He sounds reasonable. He's, like it. At the risk of making a pun, his voice is kind of harmonic, like you don't know. But he's just, it's very, there. He does have whatever that it factor is.
Yeah,
that people have.
Agree.
I don't know. It's like some people just have it, and I don't understand what it is. I mean, like Lou Holtz is one of those guys that has it. My graduation speech was Brian Matthews before his like lie scandal or whatever. Yeah, the old news anchor.
Nope.
Brian Matthews or Brian Williams? Was it Brian Williams?
I have no idea.
I can't remember.
Of those rings.
He was one of those old big news anchors, and like I'm sitting like way in the back. Like he's a blur like this big. And I'm like hanging on his every word. I know I don't agree with it, but I'm like, wow, this dude's interesting. Like I can't even see him. Some people have it. He has it. That's part of the reason why it's so good.
Yeah, I agree. Very charismatic, very believable. You feel like you can trust him when he talks. Like until you get
right
until the nonsense rings a bell and like sets off an alarm, he seems like the kind of guy that is just a good guy, And then you look at like the criminal history and the beating his wife and all this. There's a lot of reasons why he's not a good guy, but he comes across as I think
you're just ad hominem right now, Tom. That's not really fair. You're not addressing his points.
Well, and that's fair, but I'm saying it's his persona. He comes across as someone you can trust as long as you don't dig any deeper below the surface. It's very believable. I mean, I was always a very big Terrence Howard fan.
I liked him.
I don't know.
I actually wondered why. I mean, not that I'm not. I like Don Cheadle. Don't get me wrong, but I did kind of wonder, like, where'd Terrence go?
Yeah, and I didn't know the answers to that until this video kind of made me take a look at it, and now I know. And knowing is half the battle. We can talk about that later too.
I already sang for that. Don't do it.
The natural distribution of matter and
At this point, I'm just waiting for the narrator to come out with some more really crazy prose. Like, that's what I want.
We should end these with just cheering when the narrator shows up. Like,
I think it's
Yeah.
ready.
So I've sat also at lunch, basically trying to get my head around this, and also was very, very, very skeptical. And I put my hands up and say that. And one of the things that you mentioned was sort of about how this applies to, I think it was the electric sun model, and that's where it's a theory that suggests that the sun is powered from external forces rather than nuclear fusion, which is the general consensus among scientists. And the reason for that is because there's not a production of there's no evidence to suggest that the byproduct neutrinos
aliens.
are there.
Aliens. It's all aliens.
What Terrence is trying to prove, I think, is that because the fact that you can't detect whether neutrinos are there or not, there must be another way in which they're powered.
As hushed in anticipation, Terrence Howard's lips parted, releasing a cascade of forbidden knowledge that sent shockwaves through the hearts of those who dare to listen.
Don't forget, you know what I did?
A cascade of forbidden knowledge that sent
cascade
shockwaves through the hearts. I love it, man. This narrator is so great. This is my hype man for life. I need to know who did this. And
I know he just spent like an hour on thesaurus.com. That's all he did. It's
no, there's something beautiful to this. The cadence was wonderful. He evoked some good imagery. I like this guy. Me and I can get together. We could nerd out together. I love it. Cascaded. Forbidden knowledge cascaded from his mouth. That's beautiful. All right, let's check out this forbidden knowledge. I'm excited.
Didn't want to forget this flower of life, because apparently I've been interested in it at a given time. And I came out and I was born. The first thing I thought about when I was 5 years old, I was obsessed with bubbles. I was like, why does a bubble take the shape of a ball? Why not a square or a triangle? And I would go and try and make square or triangular bubbles. And you could never do it, because it turns out everything expands as a sphere and everything contracts in geometric form.
And in 1 year later, he was trouncing DaVinci, by the way.
To enter the shore and start to come back. It's the contraction.
That's like kind of a leap, right? That's exponential growth of intellect right there. I hadn't even thought about that until you said it.
He was working on this in a past life, so that at 5 years old, he was like triangle bubbles. And then at 6 years old, he was like, DaVinci, I got your ass.
That hit the expanding waves that creates the initial geometry.
I hate you, Tom.
You're so welcome.
So what I'm saying, and what I tried to tell you guys earlier, this is not your first time. It's not your first rodeo, and it won't be your last rodeo. Don't panic in this life. You can actually, there's no sense of death. Everything goes to sleep and it wakes back up again. Refolds and unfolds, refolds and unfolds. And if you're wise, if you're careful, because you can remember conscious moments in your life, can't you?
It's got to
You
be
can remember moments where you're like, wait a minute,
resurrection, moving up to samsara.
Just a little body right here. You become fully aware of everything around you. And if you quiet yourself, you can think about those things. Well, apparently I did that at the last passage, because when I came into this life, I woke up, remember, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget. And the first thing I did was work out the flower of life. When I was 6 years old, I started making these pieces.
Right after the triangle bubbles.
Wow. That was something special.
That was a journey. Again, I've already seen this video, and I just... I feel like I've become a man, finally.
I want to go so far into talking about his narcissism and his ego, and I want to go so far into talking about all of these things. But again, this is a night where we weren't going to record anything, and now it's coming up on midnight, and
we've been going for over an hour now on just this. Right. This is a good
right.
Chop it off.
All right, so let's just get to reactions.
You know who came up with some of the ego principles of your personality? Plato, whose solids are now moot thanks to Terrence. So, yes,
he destroyed the Platonic solids. Good for him, and he did it by 6 years old. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, it's pretty amazing. Okay. All right, so final reaction. What are we thinking here? What's your final reaction to all this?
Do I have to go first? Okay.
Yes. Because I was the one who asked. I had the initiative, and I was proactive enough to ask. So yeah.
All right, fine. I have to try to find a way to be nice, because I think at some base level, carnal level, he believes at least half of what he's saying, I should say. Maybe the other half is partially selling a little bit, or at least leaning into some of the stuff that he's on. But I think this is sophistry, really, and I think it's sophistry even for him. And by sophistry, I mean just like the silver-tongued or snake-tongued kind of stuff. He grabs actual facts, and he takes actual principles, and he uses some actual reasoning, and he's charismatic, and he also hits you in the feels a little bit, like, oh, I was 5 years old, and Bubbles, because like who the fuck doesn't love Bubbles when they're 5, and who doesn't love a good Anthony Hopkins performance and stuff like that. So there's points to relate and connect with him, and I mean empathy is a natural human thing. Like people want to connect with other people. They want to be with other people, and I think again, this is Doug's personal take because we've argued about this, lovers quarreled about this. I think a lot of people want to be told what to do. The vast majority do, because that's the path of least resistance. So you have a successful Hollywood charismatic guy saying some base level things like Bubbles and everything else, saying some actual true things that you can go out and verify, and that what's say like validates him. And effectively, I think this is just another. This is how cults happen. Really, that's what I think it is. Is a short version. I'm not saying that we shouldn't question some of this stuff, but I'm saying I think he's going about it all wrong. I think he's doing a cart and horse thing where he's taking exceptions to the rule and breaking the rule.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I agree with a lot of that. I'm torn with my reaction on this. I kind of see. I've been.
Sounds like we need to blast some harmonies at you.
Yeah, I'm not operating at my prime resonance frequency, apparently. My problem here is that after I watched this video, I went and watched a bunch of his other interviews and a bunch of his other moments and things, and they have sort of flavored my opinion. So it's not really a pure reaction to this video because I'm kind of biased based on other things I've seen. So I'm going to go, instead of giving like my overall reaction to this, and I'm going to just ask a question, because it was the first question that popped into my head as a writer, as someone who wants to take things and really kind of, up the ante every single time.
The question's cascaded.
Right. Cascading from my mouth. Forbidden knowledge cascading from my mouth.
Through my readers' hearts.
The question I want to ask, like the one haunting question that's actually kind of terrifying. What if he's right?
He's not, though.
Right.
And I hate to do the breakfast thing where it's like, what if you didn't have breakfast this morning? Like, but I did. But it's then, I mean, well, serious answer, then you have to, if he's right, then we do have to completely redefine most of the way we understand the world, at least when it comes to predictions. I do think there's something to be said for, like, this table's in front of me. I can touch it. I can feel it. It's there. But you at least have to ask the questions of, like, this table is 95% empty space actually. And you can question stuff like that. But as far as an actual, like, interfacing experience with the world, I don't really think it changes much. I think it just changes questions like, how far away are we actually moving from the sun every year? The bigger one is like the speed of light. Some people have contended, and I think made a better case than Terrence has with his stuff, that the speed of light is not actually constant and that it's slowing down. And that
he makes that case actually. In some of those interviews,
does change stuff though if you do that, because that changes carbon dating. And I think again, I don't understand this, way above my pay grade. I've never had the brain power to even get into this stuff, but apparently the speed of light is the only true constant in physics.
And apparently that's not constant.
That's what?
It's apparently not constant. He talks about how
right. If the only true constant is not constant, then there has to be another constant, whether it's actually in physics or not. So along that vein, well, the real answer, honestly, is that while it changes how we have to look at almost everything, odds are that we haven't been completely horrendously wrong about everything either. It could just be that you find the little tweak that changes his square root of 2 to not do that anymore. But
look at how it would change our banking, man. I mean, the national debt could be taken care of in no time if we use biology.
The national debt could be taken care of with another Bastille Day too, but we don't see people advocating for that.
Oh, how very Parisian of you.
I know. I see this as, yes, it could change some foundational principles, but it's not like we're just completely wrong on everything. That's probably not how it works. I mean, he also, the same guys that he tried to lean on their authority of Newton and all of them earlier on. You know, he said these guys tried to figure this stuff out their whole lives. Well, they're also revered in the fields nowadays as advancing the field. So if you're going to give credit to those guys for working on some of your stuff, you kind of have to give them credit for working on some of the stuff that we do use that is accepted. Yeah. So, yeah. So I think real life doesn't change much.
Fair. After watching a bunch of his other interviews, I will say he seems to be that sort of guy. And we've talked about this person with our dog suit and during our What is a Woman Defined episode. Like, we've talked about people like this where if the way things work don't end in a some result that he likes, that works for him, then the system is wrong. It's not a him thing. It's what's around him, and it's a system that's wrong. He comes off, after I've watched a lot of interviews and spent way too much time watching other YouTube appearances of his or YouTube videos of his, he comes off as the kind of guy where if it doesn't favor him and he doesn't like the result, then there's something wrong with the system. It's never something wrong with him. It's always something wrong with the system.
That just makes him very human. A lot of us are like that. Yes,
but he takes it to a very different level. Anyone who's willing to go out and publicly say some of the things that he has said, it's an ego thing. It's a
he was teaching British people, Tom, and British people are smart.
He was at Oxford. He wasn't just at any university. He's at one of the most
prestigious universities, like a premier university. Yeah,
right. And if you watch if you watch the full length version without this editor, this narrator who I love,
I was going to say you can't even make it through the full length version.
No, the full length version is about an hour, and it is sadder without this narrator because he's just amazing, or she, I should say. I don't know which, but he or she is amazing.
Oh man, I could say the cancel thing.
Don't. But in the full length version, he talks about how Leonardo DaVinci, would be so upset at Oxford University, and that he talks about how Leonardo da Vinci would be opposed to what Oxford is doing. I forget exactly how he says it, and completely leaves out the fact that I believe Leonardo attended Oxford. I'm pretty sure he was actually there for a time. But you just look at the things Terrence Howard says and does, and a lot of it is inflated and exaggerated, and it's never his fault. He's one of those "it's never my fault" people, but he's to such an extreme that when it's not his fault, the system has to change. It's not his fault he didn't pay taxes for years. It's the government's fault because they should not be making African Americans pay taxes. It's not his fault that he wasn't cast in Iron Man 2. He got screwed because they wouldn't pay him the money that he wanted and the extra money, and Robert Downey Jr. stole that money from him. But it's not his fault that they had to go through editing and cut most of what he actually shot for the first Iron Man because they didn't like it and he was hard to work with. Like, none of that is his fault. Empire right now, his issues with the Empire show and his casting and his salary and what's going on there, none of that is his fault. It's all the fault of something else. Everything is always someone else's fault, and he takes it to crazy levels. I kind of love that he took this high. This is not my fault that I disagree with 1 times 1. This is mathematics' fault. We have this wrong. And he went out and did something about it. Like, as batshit crazy as I think he is, I love this man's initiative. I love his commitment. I love his dedication to this. Aside from the fact that I think he's probably starting a cult of some sort, I am in complete admiration of the maximum effort he put into this. It's impressive. Very few people can put forth that kind of sustained effort without just giving up or retiring. This guy's all in, and a part of me really digs that, even though I believe he's wrong. I really think that.
I feel like in 100 or 200 years, when people are listening to a historical figures podcast, when you follow up the Genghis Khan episode with the Terrence Howard episode, we will have failed as a society.
We could talk for a whole hour about Genghis Khan. I'd be so happy to do that.
I need to do more research about that guy, but he was, he was the great king for a reason.
Was amazing and terrifying and horrible and horrifying and amazing. And all right, anyway, it wouldn't be right if we didn't do dad jokes. Do we want to do
I was going to say we should do dad jokes. I brought a math one. I searched my brain for a math one while we were listening to all the math.
Good. Go for it. Let me have it.
Why do math classes take so long, Tom? Or I should say, excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should help you a little bit with this. Why do algebra classes take so long?
This feels to me like one I would get if I stopped and I thought about it. But I'm afraid because we didn't edit it. Let me try it again. Wow,
this is the best part. Is we can't edit this because then, like, if we edit enough, I'll just be sitting here going like this.
Right. That's the thing. The podcast version of this, the audio only version of this is
so much nicer.
Yeah, but the video version is going to have the long dead spaces. So I'm not going to try to reason to them. I'm going to go ahead and say that I don't have it, I don't know it, and I'm curious. But I feel like I should figure it out.
Probably should, because they keep going off on tangents.
Nice. I do like that. Yeah, I like that.
I'm glad.
Okay. From mine, I went with an oldie but a goodie. It's a slightly different version of one that I use when I'm sitting at a poker table a lot.
So I'm gonna have to dig into my past life for this one.
No. It's simple, and you don't even actually have to respond. It's one of those nice, easy, smooth deliveries.
That's no fun. You're no fun. All right, go.
Yeah, I know. But I was thinking about the problem with Terrence Howard and it being how he doesn't understand multiplication, the definition of what multiplication is. He doesn't understand what it means in a mathematical sense. And he feels like he's a mathematical genius. He really does. So I feel like he fits very well into that trope that 4/3 of Americans are really bad at math. And I really think he just fits in there.
We are. Yeah.
And the other version is something along the lines of, 80% of Americans.
And we're greater than you.
Right. I'm glad I'm part of the 25% that's good at it or something.
Right. Right. Exactly. Wonder how those other 3 people feel.
Right. I see Rios tuned in to watch us, my homie from the Army. I'm glad he's tuning in too. We're getting some comments. I didn't think anybody would find us this time of night. Our first experimental live stream, but Tam and Rios, two of
So should I be trying to find this right now? I would be on my phone. Okay,
I didn't see it pop up on the Two Dads Talking podcast page like it was supposed to. I only see it on
because because it's going to yours first because of how you set it up to go to the other one later. You need to find a way to set it to yours first. Okay, but the more important thing I was going to say, if you guys are finding us right now, I'm questioning you. What are you doing?
These are people who are.
Who are you? Who do you work for?
When they show up with the head bags, just ask them if they're a friend of mine first, and you'll be fine.
You know Tom.
Yeah, it's good. It's fine. Go ahead and put that over my head. I can trust you. Okay. We're going to a surprise party. Is that where we're going?
Do I do this? Like, do I just?
Right. Yeah. Just don't fight it. Don't resist. It's fine.
Like Rio says, take me there.
Right. Rio says, "What if he's doing all of this to distract? What's he
from
distracting?
what?
Yeah. What's the
what is he doing? Not getting another Iron Man role, obviously.
Well, right. Obviously, Don Cheadle. I like Don Cheadle, but he is not as good in that role as Terrence Howard was.
No, I actually do agree. I think Terrence Howard did a better job, at least from like the interpersonal with Tony Stark. At least that like kind of relationship role. I think he did better with that. I think Don Cheadle is better as the actual hero, as the actual functioning war machine. I thought he was better at that. But from the actual like Tony, what are you doing? Kind of side of the character. I think what they did put on screen actually worked pretty well.
Yeah.
Extremely
Apparently they spent a lot of time in post-production just chopping up his scenes, and they really didn't care for it. A lot of reshoots, and apparently Jon Favreau had a real problem with him and all that sort of a thing.
So kind of like us.
Yeah, kind of like us. All right. It's an hour and 22 minutes in. We weren't supposed to even be recording tonight. I'm waking up in less than 5 hours to go do the work thing and be professional. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for our first ever live stream. And by everyone, I mean 2 of you. Although I see we had 26 plays. Well, that's kind of cool. So 26 people at least stopped and checked it out before they decided we were.
Or 24 bots and then the 2 people we like.
I'm good with that, too. Thank you, everybody, for listening to our first ever live stream. We are working with StreamYard a little bit here. We're going to have some more video stuff coming up soon. So this won't be the last one, but our first experimental one, I think it went fairly well. And unless the CIA head bags us or my spam artist decides to actually cap me with a 7mm, we will see you guys in about a week. I drove to the point of breaking. I finally got one to break.
I know, finally. Yeah. Talk nice to us about your neighbors. Go, Dad, go.
Talk nice to us about your neighbors. Talk nice to your neighbors about us. Try that one. Don't talk to us about your neighbors.
Just talk nice to your neighbors anyway. It doesn't matter.
All right. Love you guys. Thank you for listening. Rios, Tam, especially. Thank you guys for chiming in and giving us some comments. This episode was brought to you by Avid Modular Holsters.
Stop
you can
it.
Check them out. And thank you again for listening. We'll catch you guys soon.
Bye.